Hello everyone, it is Monday in Paris, and I think we all know what that means by now. It means another episode of the Eiffel Tower, presented by French Today audiobooks. There'll be a bit more about that at the end of this episode. But a few things to address about this episode. First, for the first time in the history of the Eiffel Tower, I'm going to dedicate an episode to a listener. So this one goes out to you, Diane. Thank you for your message, which I'm about to read. It says, Bonjour, Oliver. Your podcast transports me to the Paris I've always dreamed of visiting as I listen to you from my bed in Tennessee, sick with a long-term illness. Thank you for the joy you bring to me each week. Blessings from Diane. Firstly, Diane, I hope you get a lot better soon. And I'm sorry to hear you have a long-term illness. And I hope that an episode like this, which is a little bit longer than usual, will cheer you up. My thoughts are with you, Diane, and I hope you're feeling better soon. So a little bit of a longer episode. I'm experimenting. I got a lot of emails from people saying do more episodes. How about one longer episode? This is Boris Petrovich, who's a tour guide from Paris in person. And as we got chatting, you're going to hear it pretty quick. He's a very interesting and intelligent bloke, and he really knows his stuff. So every time he said something, I found myself with a follow-up question. I found myself listening to him explaining his Paris, and it got really interesting. So what we're going to do, or what you're going to hear, is him presenting what he considers to be the most interesting thing to find in all 20 arrondissements of Paris. So I've done this kind of thing before with bars, restaurants, streets. Boris is doing the most interesting thing to find. You're going to hear everything from churches and buildings to streets and just general sights. You're going to learn something, I guarantee you. So buckle up. It's a bit longer, but hey, I think it's worth it sometimes when there's something interesting going on. So you're going to hear from Boris Petrovich from Paris in person, followed by Camille from French Today, who joins me in the studio to point out a mistake that French learners very typically make, including me. So, here comes Boris, here comes the Eiffel Tower, another Monday, let's get into it. And Diane, get well soon. Boris. Am I saying it right?
Yeah, it's close enough.
Boris Petrovich.
Yeah, that's actually surprisingly good, yeah.
Yeah? Serbian name.
Especially the ch at the end, yeah. That's what people struggle with, yeah.
Then most people say Petrovich.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Here in France, they always do, yeah.
Right, okay. How does a French person say Boris?
Boris.
Boris.
Yeah.
And in Serbia?
Boris.
Okay. And in English?
Boris.
Okay, we've covered it all. Okay.
Yeah.
And that was the least interesting part of the show. It's all about to get interesting because I've asked Boris
Hopefully.
I've asked him to come in with now a lot of people come to Paris and they want to see touristy things. What do you think about that? Fair enough?
Fair enough. I mean, some of those things truly are amazing and they need to be seen. It's just that, like, we're so jaded to them. You know, you've seen the Eiffel Tower so many times and you're like, who would bother? But it really is a magnificent thing. So, yeah, but there are many other things, that are equally as amazing that we need to also cover.
Do you think without the Eiffel Tower and without the Sacré-Cœur and all that stuff, do you think Paris still ranks as one of the tourist destinations?
I would think it would still rank as a very beautiful city that's definitely worth a visit. But if it would be like that attractive, I don't know. Perhaps I'm a bit too cynical about these things. I think that they could spin other things to be as important as the Eiffel Tower is.
Right. And that's kind of what we're about to do.
Exactly.
We're about to tell you guys, dear listeners, about 20 things, one in every arrondissement, that's the most interesting thing to find. So forget about all the typical Eiffel Tower stuff. Just forget about it. And we're going to take you for a long walk through Paris, starting with the first arrondissement. And Boris is going to explain what he finds to be the most interesting. So we can chat a little bit about your tour guiding and your story in Paris as we go through.
No, this is like an assembly of all of the tour guides, blended into one.
Yeah,
so,
right?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Yeah. Well, let's start. I think there's no better place to start than the first arrondissement.
Yeah, the center of everything. So I would choose Saint Germain Auxerois. That is a former official church of French kings, right behind the Louvre Museum. That is a very interesting place, one of my personal favorites in the city, where you can really see the difference between the medieval style that it was built in, flamboyant gothic, and the classical style that backhand of the Louvre is built in. So you look at one side of the street, it's, Renaissance, classical style, and the other, it's medieval. So you get the difference between two worlds, two schools of thought. Everything is different. So
what does it mean, flamboyant gothic?
It means that it was made to look as if it were in flames. So all of the decorations look like flames. So it's really dramatic.
So
really.
which bit of what's the bit that looks like flames?
The tower. The tower was built later, but also the windows, they have decorations, stained glass windows, they look like flames. And the entire church. Another good example would be Tour Saint-Jacques in the fort. So, yeah.
I didn't even know. So
It's,
flamboyant as in like flamey.
Yeah, flamey, yeah.
Not flamboyant as in very camp. Or,
No, not that, no.
although, have you ever noticed the soldiers on top of the Hôtel de Ville are very kind of flamboyant, as in they're all sort of standing
you're right.
They're very relaxed.
Yeah, well, flamboyant Gothic is the latest addition to Gothic style, so you might call it decadent, and that is going towards, flamboyancy you're referring to, so there might be a connection there.
So the things that Boris is going to be saying over the next half an hour or so are going to be, some of them, like flamboyant Gothic churches, will be very visual. So let me just tell you, on the EiffelTower.com, there'll be a picture of everything he mentions, which might be good to look at as we're talking.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
So the church, that's a church, was number one.
Yeah.
And that's the thing to see in the first arrondissement.
Yeah. It's always good to start with the church. Like, the church is the basis of everything.
Right.
So, yeah.
And it's kind of another thing to look at was in number 2, the second arrondissement, the smallest arrondissement.
Yeah. Well, the thing is that there is this really beautiful place called Place de Victoires that has lovely houses built around it. That particular style was used as an inspiration for the Haussmannian reconstruction of Paris. So it's like one of the really well-preserved places of Paris where you can walk between many buildings that were made in the 17th and the 18th century and really transport yourself to that particular time. Because, when you go to other places, like Marais or Saint Germain, you would have old streets, but then you would have new streets. Or in one street, you would have the old and the new buildings. That would be a mix. Here, it's like really all old. You can get a couple of streets, walk around, it's as if you traveled through time. So that's like a really, really neat part of the city.
And what do you mean by it? So those buildings, when you're standing, it's kind of like a roundabout. It's like it is a roundabout.
Oh, yeah, right? It is, yeah.
So when you're standing, it kind of looks Haussmannian.
Yeah, because it's all arranged and they all have the same height. They are all of the same style. So this is the style that Haussmann wanted to reproduce on a larger scale, just apply it to the rest of the city.
I thought Haussmann was famous because he sort of just came up with this idea and made Paris look like that.
No such thing. No,
what, he just stole it all.
Yeah,
from the
pretty much.
Place de Victoire.
Yeah, well, not only Place de Victoire, also Place de Vosges, Place Vendôme, like other places, Place de la Concorde. But the idea was around long before.
So when was Haussmann? I always get the dates mixed up.
1853 to 1870.
So this is what I love about you, Boris. You know your stuff.
Yeah, well, some of it.
You've got the facts. So we've got Haussmann in the 1850s and so on. Yeah. And so I didn't know this. So he looked at those buildings and he goes, I'm just kind of make it all uniform like that.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So he just saw what he liked and copy pasted it all over the place, basically.
On a larger scale, like on a really massive scale.
Yeah.
So made the larger buildings that were more heavily built, everything, but it's essentially the same idea.
And is it true that he didn't really get his teeth and fingers into like Montmartre and parts of?
Not as much as he would want, but it was during the Haussmannian intervention that Montmartre was made a part of the city. So, I would say partially he got there.
So we got a lot to thank. If you're listening, Haussmann, or your family.
The Ghost of Haussmann, yeah.
That could be a good book title, The Ghost of Haussmann.
Yeah, pretty shady person too, so yeah, but the topic for another conversation, yeah.
This is what I said. I already said it 1 minute ago, but I love talking to you, Boris, because, and for you guys who haven't seen, we did a walk show in the Parc Monceau. And what I loved about it is I realized very quickly during your tour that I could go off topic and ask you for very specific details about stuff.
Yeah, that's the fun part, right?
And you know the answers, whereas a lot of tour guides maybe would gloss over it. Let's jump over to the Marais.
Okay, so we have a beautiful and unique building of Musée Carnavalet that is actually Hôtel de Sévigné. And it's an hôtel particulier. Nowadays, it's a museum of history of Paris. And the really interesting thing about this museum is that every room is designed to be a time capsule. So you go basically from pre-medieval times to early 20th century, and every room features art and furniture and overall design from that particular era. And you really get to see, not only Parisian history, but also European history, how everything developed. It's an amazing place. I actually used to work there, so it's a bit of a subjective
There's
recommendation.
a big problem with this, isn't it?
There's a massive problem that the museum is being renovated for the last couple of years, and it should be reopened by the end of this year.
This is like I've heard so much about this museum I've never been in.
It really is cool, and the best part about it, well, one of the good things is that it's free. So the admission is free. Yeah,
maybe not after the renovation, though.
We'll see, but it belongs to the city of Paris, and all of the museums that belong to the city of Paris are free. So it should be the way.
Well,
but as you said, Oli, this show is a part of the internet history. We're making internet history, so it will be here forever. So even if you're listening this in 2045, go to...
Imagine that.
Yeah.
Imagine that. If you're listening in 2045, get in contact. We'll give you a free tour together, Boris and I, if we're still alive.
Hopefully.
But Boris is right. If you're listening to this in 2020 or late 2019, that museum will be open. But right now, as we record, it's not. So you have to come up with something else.
Oh, yeah. Well, something else would be really close, really nearby, just on the other side of the street, and it's the library of City of Paris, another beautiful hôtel particulier that you can enter. You can really see what it looks like from the inside. So the library itself is set with a room with these beautiful wooden beams. The chairs are really old and massive, like leather covering. So, yeah, it's another really, really cool place to visit.
And is that free to get into?
Oh, yeah, also.
That's one. Is that the one that it's just near the Rue de Rosier?
Yeah, exactly. You
so
just go to the left when you exit the Rue de Rosier, and it's right there on the right corner. On the other side of the street from the Muji.
Yeah. I think I went in
boutique.
there once when I moved to Paris, and I got nervous. They asked if I had a library card or something like that.
Well, it's easy to get a library card. You just leave your, address or something, and they give you one.
Okay. And that's worth it just for looking at, not necessarily borrowing a book or anything like that.
Yeah, well, they have a pretty good collection of books if you're into history of Paris. They have a solid collection of maps and everything. But yeah, just like a visit, is good on its own.
Anything in English?
I never found anything in English.
Anything in Serbian?
Not really, no.
All right, cool. So let's stick in the Marais, move to the 4th arrondissement. Very popular with tourists.
Yeah, very popular. So it's 11 Rue François Miron, the oldest existing house in Paris. Now, we need to be precise about this. It's not the oldest existing building because there are much older buildings. This is the actual abode, like a place where people used to live. And you can really tell the difference. It looks fairly medieval. It's from the 14th century. So you can see the open beams. You can see how incredibly different it was made compared to all the buildings from the 17th and 18th and 19th century that surround it. So, yeah, there was an interesting institution situated here. I'm not sure if you want to...
You should raise your eyebrows. Let's hear more about this institution.
Yeah, it was a swingers club, yeah. So it's a really... I mean, it had this really tacky, hours... on the
opening
door.
hours.
Opening hours, yeah, with two people kissing, but it was all really tacky 90s design, so I think they've closed it a couple of months ago, which is a shame, yeah.
That's why they never wrote back for my membership application. I got a story for you, Boris, is that place that you mentioned, it's just around the corner from the Peloton Cafe. Mm-hmm. Friends of the show, you and I have met there before.
Oh, yeah, of course.
Several times, I think. Mm-hmm. But also, I met with a listener to this show, Isabel, if she's listening perhaps, and she lives in that very building that you're talking about. Yeah.
Wow.
So it was a bit weird because I said I'd love to see inside your building, and I don't usually force my way into listeners' homes, but I really was curious to see it inside this old building.
So what's it like? I've never been
it's
all the way up.
It's kind of more interesting from the outside, to be honest, but on the inside there's still more of those wooden beams, and I took a bunch of pictures, and I don't think I ever shared them. So when this episode comes out, I'll put them in the Instagram story for people to look, and you can check it out too. Are you on Instagram?
Yeah, I'm Paris in person.
Paris in person. There you go. Check out Boris as well. Maybe he'll be putting up pictures as well of these kind of things for your viewing pleasure while you're listening. But let's jump over the River Seine.
Over the river. So we're in the 5th Arène de Lutèce, one of the remnants of Roman presence here. So a small arena, a small colosseum that's actually really well preserved, and it's surrounded.
This is a colosseum in Paris.
Yeah,
that's wild. A lot of people would, when you think colosseum, you think
Rome,
or southern France, even some of those.
Exactly. Well, this is a really small one, and you can't really see it from the street because half of it is covered by a park and half of it is covered by buildings. So you kind of have to know your way in. But it's like a park today. You go there and you see kids playing soccer, inside of a colosseum where gladiatorial fights would take place.
Do you know much about the gladiatorial fights and stuff? So they
no,
fight
some.
tigers and lions and stuff as well?
Yeah, they did. Yeah, but it's kind of different. I mean, it's an entire topic in its own. We have this really strange image from the movies that we saw. These really like big buff men. Most of gladiators were actually pretty thick. They had a lot of fat because the whole idea would be that you train a fighter for a very long time and you want him to entertain the audience. So you don't want him to train for years and then just be killed in one show. You want him to be cut, but so that he's not fatally wounded. So you want him to bleed, so that the audience could get the gore thereafter, but you want him to heal afterwards. So he really needs to be thick to have a lot of fat.
Like blubber.
Exactly, yeah.
Like kind of like in Jaws, every time they throw a harpoon at him, he just keeps going down and coming back.
Yeah, exactly. So it's kind of like, wrestlers, professional wrestlers from the States. A lot of it was staged. I mean, some gore would happen, some murders would happen, but it would be a rare occasion. Like usually when a well-trained fighter that's there to entertain the audience, and he would be, as you say, a blubber ball, like instead of this hunky, Russell Crowe type of Australian.
But or Brad Pitt in Troy or whatever.
Yeah.
So they wouldn't have had six packs.
No, not really. No, so quite the opposite.
Yeah, so that's interesting. So any sort of middle-aged, weighty guys listening to this, you can say,
invoke your inner gladiator.
Yeah, if you sign up on like a dating website and it says what sort of shape are you in, you say like a gladiator, like a Roman gladiator.
There you go. That's a really good usage of this.
If anybody does that, send us a screenshot because I will share that directly on Instagram.
Oh yeah,
or
me
Facebook.
too. Actually,
that is brilliant. Gladiator, I'm in the shape of a gladiator. Okay, that's cool. So that's worth a look, and it's a pretty nice area anyway.
Okay, so next to it is the 6th. So
Hey, but before you get into the 6th, every 5, I think I'm going to have a little pause for a little. We take a breather from the list, and I ask you about yourself.
Okay,
because we don't want to stand here giving lists to people.
Yeah.
We're humans as well, Boris.
Yeah, we're more than that. We're more than just list givers.
I've got a question: is if you had to give one last tour of Paris, right? You've got some Paris fans coming to Paris, and
so my farewell tour, huh?
Yeah, your farewell tour, and the thing is, I said this to guests before, you're being deported the very next day back to Serbia for unknown reasons.
That's
right?
a nice analogy, yeah. Okay.
And they say, we just want to see what you want to show us, Boris. 3 hours. What are you going to show them?
Well, that's a tough one. Well, I think it would be Notre Dame, really, because this is such an amazing place and something I love so much and like I personally associate to. But if it would be 3 hours, I would try to squeeze in parts of Haussmannian in Paris too. So like see how Notre Dame inspired second half of the 19th century and how you had all these like neo-Gothic or Gothic revival buildings sprouting up all over Paris. So I would make an assembly of those things, yeah. So Notre Dame, an hour and a half, and then, like Haussmannian, post-Haussmannian Gothic revival architecture around Paris. So that would be my farewell tour before I get deported.
And which side, where would you go for the Haussmannian stuff?
Around the opera, I would go to...
That's dangerous because then you're including like a bit of a metro trip on your.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. Well, for my farewell tour, I would spare no expense. I would just like hire a private chopper or something, land.
Oh, that would be amazing.
So yeah, that would be the one when I finally confess to that murder. We're talking about
before I'll let the listeners in on something. Before we press record, I say it to lots of guests. I say treat this recording as if it's live, and if you accidentally confess to a murder, I can edit it out later. And then Boris went pale, so I'm not sure where this interview is going to turn. But let's now jump back to the 6th, and we can talk about deportation and murders later.
Of course. So the 6th would be Beaux-Arts, which is the French Academy of Fine Arts, like a school of very high repute. But the interesting part of it is that when you enter the courtyard, the first building on your right would be the actual oldest museum in the world. So the first museum ever opened during the French Revolution in 1792. Back in the day, as you can imagine, museums didn't exist as institutions. French revolutionaries had this very novel idea of sharing culture with the world, sharing arts with everyone. And so this is the first place where they made it. Like this really, really small church from the 17th century, nothing really remarkable about it, but the first museum that ever opened. And of course, we're in the 6th, we have to mention Jardin de Luxembourg. It's a bit of a staple, so many people probably have heard about it or been there already. So a beautiful garden. I personally feel it's like the most beautiful garden in the city. But yeah, that's
we have to throw that in because we were talking about it. It will feel a lot of listeners there who've maybe come to Paris once or twice. We're going deep on this list, so these will be things that maybe you've never heard. But there are many reasons to visit places like the Jardin de Luxembourg.
It's a beautiful place.
I had a lovely walk. The walk shows. Well, we did one together. I did one with author John Baxter in that garden, and it was really nice because he goes there for inspiration when he's writing his books, and it was quite nice to wander through those leafy.
Well, the best part of it is that when you go all the way to the back and you really walk around it, you don't just stay with the Medici fountain and with main pond. You really go behind, and it's like a lot more private. It's not as crowded, so it's really a really cozy place.
And it's big as well. It's such a big park. Anyway, let's jump again.
Okay, to the 7th.
I call it the touristy 7th. Do you think that's fair?
Fairly fair. I mean, because of the Eiffel Tower is there and all of it. But there are a couple of other places, like Square Rap is one of my favorite ones. So that's RAPP. Because of Art Nouveau architecture. So you
love Art Nouveau architecture.
Yeah, that's one of my things. I was actually considering responding, for my deportation farewell tour, that Art Nouveau tour would be also...
Maybe it can be your welcome back tour.
Yeah, maybe.
When the statute of limitations is cleared or whatever.
Yeah, when they change the laws, yeah. So a couple of beautiful buildings that are all stacked together, and just around the corner in Avenue Rapp, there is one of the most beautiful facades in the whole city of Paris, number 29. Lovely Art Nouveau, eclectic, colorful, different materials. So it looks like a massive melting pot of different styles, but it's actually all one style, and it's truly amazing. And if you're into conspiracy theories, Square Rap is also a great place because one of the houses there is a former Société Théosophique, or the Theosophical Society, one of those many occult societies that were sprouting up in the late 19th, early 20th century. So, really amazing building and a place worth to visit.
I fear the occult.
Oh, yeah? No, you shouldn't.
No, embrace it.
Embrace it.
Right.
Yeah.
And I'm no expert on things like Art Nouveau architecture. How do you know what's Art Nouveau and what's not?
Well, and you can recognize it by being, in most cases, asymmetrical, by having more than one colors, by having funky materials. So it wouldn't be just like a stucco facade, as most Paris is. It would have a lot of porcelain, ceramics, stone, cast iron. So just a blend of things. And it would have these blends of like grotesque ornamentations. And
when you say grotesque, what does that mean?
Well, it means that it's... like a being made of two things. It's like half an animal and half human, it's like a sphinx is a great example of a grotesque being. It has the head of a human, the body of a lion, the wings of an eagle, the tail of a snake. So it's like if you blend different things together, that's grotesque.
But what's confusing, because grotesque also means like disgusting, right?
Yeah.
And flamboyant also means, like flamboyant.
That other thing, yeah.
Yeah, so it's hard for me. Like when you say grotesque creatures, I just imagine ugly creatures.
Yeah, but I guess that's like a vernacular usage of it. But yeah, you're right. I mean, some of what's funny about Art Nouveau is that some of those things are really on the edge of between being breathtakingly beautiful and being, really disturbing.
Yeah,
so then you have a lot of those, limit experiences built into the facade, which makes it even more curious.
Wow. My brothers are grotesque.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, they don't listen.
Shout out to your brother.
No, they don't listen. It's fine. But one thing, like when you're like, I find things like Art Nouveau and flamboyant Gothic and stuff. Do people tend to throw these terms around, or is it mostly tour guides and experts that use this kind of language? Because I feel like if someone said to me as I'm walking down the street, "Oh, that's very flamboyant Gothic," I would never say, "Well, I don't think so."
Well, now you can.
Well, now I will.
Well, I don't know. I mean, I guess most people around me do use those terms, daily. So I guess, I wouldn't know what to say about it.
No, I don't know. I'm intrigued by all this stuff. I want to learn more. But when the last question on the Art Nouveau is when was this? When were people building this?
So this is like Belle Époque, so late 19th, early 20th century, basically between 1880 and beginning of World War I. Now, it's kind of hard to say because even today you have people doing things in style of Art Nouveau, but it's really like that particular style is defined, between 1880s and beginning of World War I. So, like the original one.
Say I could talk to you for half half an hour on this alone, but we must jump.
We must jump
to the 8th.
Yeah, so this is a really cool thing. This is actually a chapel, chapelle expiatoire, that served for 21 years as the tomb of Louis XVI, that we all know was killed during the French Revolution.
I love that you say we all know. Do we all know?
Well, I guess, yeah. Okay, well, now we do. A posteriori knowledge. So, yeah, the French king whose head was chopped off on Place de la Concorde during the French Revolution had his expiatory tomb when...
I don't know what that means, though.
Well, it's like this idea that you would actually be sorry for something you did and you would build it as out of remorse, but on a more larger scale, I guess. So the idea was that after the French Revolution, stumbled and failed and had Napoleon and many other things, they had a period of reconstruction when monarchy came back. And then that's when they built this, and they were sort of trying to portray him as a martyr of the revolution. And they built this really curious little tomb that is situated in a really nice little park. So it's right off behind the Opera House on Boulevard Haussmann. And you can visit it, it's set up as a little museum. They transferred his body later to Saint-Denis Cathedral, which is where all the French kings are, but, it's there as the monument to Louis XVI. And you could also say that they've chosen that site specifically because it was a site of the mass graveyard where they were throwing bodies of mostly aristocrats that they were, guillotining during the French Revolution. So it was not chosen by hazard.
Wow.
Yeah, it's a pretty neat little place, and it's really calm. When you go there, there's this really serene and I would say respectful and nice atmosphere inside. And it's not really popular. I mean, every time I was there, I was alone inside.
Really?
So yeah.
2 follow-up questions, and I could do follow-up questions for everything, but we'll keep it in short. The Basilica Saint-Denis, worth a visit?
Oh, yes.
But it's out of the city, right?
Yeah. It's in a really dodgy, ugly... Sorry, people from Saint-Denis, but, it's like easily the only thing that's worth the visit in Saint-Denis area.
So it's like north of the city where
it's kind of...
football stadiums and stuff.
Yeah, it's kind of dodgy. But, I mean, I guess if you're an architect enthusiast, there's a lot of brutalist architecture out there. So a lot of things made of concrete that they look as if they were made on Mars, so really like not something you would associate with Paris. And then in the middle of it all, you have this amazing cathedral, first Gothic cathedral ever made. So yeah, worth the visit.
Second follow-up question, the opera that you mentioned, I've heard there's like a lake underneath. Do you know about this?
Yeah, that's a thing. I mean, it's a part of a urban myth, involving the Phantom of the Opera and how he moves around, in these like Venice-like channels. I mean, I don't know. There might be subterranean waters because, when you go through catacombs of Paris, and a lot of them are really submerged in water. So, yeah, there might be a lake. I cannot confirm it, 100%.
And you do, you've done tours of the opera as well.
Oh, yeah, I have,
I think an Eiffel Tower listener got in touch and did one of your tours, which reminds me, you Eiffel Tower listeners, do a tour with Boris and let him know that you found it through the Eiffel. And if there's enough, you'll come back for another episode. But you know what I've just noticed? We're up to 8. No, yeah, we're up to 8.
Yeah, this was the 8th.
Yeah, so we need to get a wiggle on.
Okay.
So some of these we'll have to skip through and save the best stories for the best ones.
Okay, so 9th is Quartier Drouot. That's actually not very far from here. And if you like old things, if you like antiques, old undervalued art or candelabras or like pieces of furniture, that's the place where you go to.
Like bric-a-brac.
So, bric-a-brac, yeah. But you can actually, if you go through the rubble long enough, you can find valuable pieces that are not too expensive. And you can, haggle with the salesman. You can actually sell them stuff.
Really?
It's a pretty neat place.
Any tips on haggling with the Parisians?
I don't know. I mean, I don't think I'm very good at it, so you might actually
especially in French, it's tough to do it in your second or third language.
And these are all guys, I mean, I went there many times, and these guys are all in their 60s and 70s, so they're really old and experienced. So I don't think
it's tough.
Yeah, you can try, but
apparently one thing I've learned is that in all of Paris you can haggle for lots of different things. I mean, wild, like things that you wouldn't even imagine.
Yeah,
right?
That's true. Yeah,
it's a good city. Always try it. I mean, not if you're at a restaurant or you're buying a bottle of wine or something, but within reason, you'll be surprised what you can get away with.
Not at Monoprix, but
speaking of Paris. Let's jump to the 10th arrondissement. You've got Rue Faubourg Saint-Denis.
Exactly, yeah. So this is a very hip and gentrified place that I find personally interesting because I used to live in the neighborhood just around it, and it was a really, really dodgy place.
How long ago was this?
Easily like 10 years ago.
Right. How long have you lived in Paris?
12 and a half years now.
Right,
yeah.
wow.
So I was just around the corner, a very dodgy place, but then it got gentrified, and now it's like the hottest city, I would say the hottest street in the city.
You
like
think
amazing,
the hottest street in the city?
I would easily say that. Yeah, amazing bars, like really nice restaurants, really gourmet stuff popping out. Every time you go there, there's another thing that opened. So yeah, particular thing I would mention is Jules Bakery. So it's not only bakery; they have all these different gourmet items they sell. So but many cool places there. So really worth a visit. And it's also one of those unique places that Parisians go to themselves.
Yeah.
So like an authentic, sort of like the new Marais, I would say.
Yeah, it's just going to keep getting better too, probably.
Oh yeah, totally. Yeah, that entire neighborhood is exploding.
And it's good for day and night. Really good nightlife, and good for just a walk down. And the other cool thing, historically speaking, is the amazing archway right at the bottom.
Oh yeah, that's true. Yeah,
From
the former gate of Paris.
Yes, from what 1500s?
Yeah.
Yeah, there you go. I got.
Well, there you go.
You know, I love a good wall. Although that's not my favorite wall.
No.
That would be the Philippe Auguste wall.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, you're a wall enthusiast.
Yeah.
Right?
Everyone's talking about walls these days. Let's skip to the 11th, the trendy 11th. And you've got, so I used to live in the 11th, and I don't know what you've got here. Stroll between.
So, yeah, Square Trousseau and Bastille. So, the thing with 11th, that is used to be just outside of the city. So, for a very long time, it was the countryside, but it was also like a working class district where you would have a lot of furniture ateliers, like furniture shops. And nowadays, of course, they're all gentrified and there's something else, but some of them are still in business. So what you can do around walking in this neighborhood is you can just try and walk into these passageways, and you can see passageways where they still have these ateliers open. And some of them are furniture shops. Some of them are actually still, functional ateliers, but they look really cute and really authentic. So it's like you're in the 11th, which is a very hot, arrondissement of Paris nowadays, but then you can just make a turn to the left or to the right, and it's like you're in the 19th century again,
Cool.
So it's really like small houses, grass sprouting between cobblestones and all of it, like a really rural, experience.
Yeah, neat.
Yeah, it's right there by the Bastille, yeah. So.
I love those parts of Paris where you it just transports you.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah.
12th.
Okay, Musée des Arts Forains. So this is a really, I would say, a strange place. So it's the Museum of Circus Arts. And they have all of the like late 19th century circus gear there. So like original wooden carousels and like all the circus machinery. Every time I went there, for some reason, it was for a celebration or something. It was during night, so it looked extra spooky. And if you're like easily afraid by clowns and all of the like circus horror, I think that's the place to go to. Yeah.
Well, if you're easily afraid, you should go there.
Oh yeah,
no, that's the way you should avoid. That's a real thing, though. People are scared of clowns, right?
Oh yeah, they are. Yeah.
I wonder what how those things have a great name, like phobia. I wonder what fear of clowns is.
Oh, we'll have to find a Greek name for a clown. I mean,
yeah, my Greek is rusty. Okay, so let's do the next couple of ones quick.
Okay, so 13th is what they call the Petite Alsace. It's in Rue d'Avielle in the 13th, and it's really like this really beautiful street with all the villas that look incredibly scenic and cute. So they have these really overgrown, gardens. So it's again as if you were transported to a completely different era.
It's on a hill, right?
Yeah, exactly.
I've seen a
that's the
picture
one.
of it. Yeah,
it's amazing. Like it's just like cutest little countryside thing right in the middle of Paris. So
and what do you recommend? Just go there for a walk and a look. Yeah,
just browse the houses. Look, peep inside people's gardens.
Just though you get caught doing it, you might end up being deported. But this Petite Alsace, like it's not like they're selling food.
Not really, no. It's just a place where you go to walk and admire beautiful gardens and houses.
To be a flaneur, you might say.
Exactly. Well, speaking of flaneurs, the 14th, again, Haussmann. So this is the park that he himself designed. So he gave himself a lot of creative liberty. And he did a park that was according to his own taste. And
we should name it. It's Parc Montsouris.
Montsouris, yeah. It's right at the very edge of the 14th district, so very close to the périphérique. Great place for running because, it's a fairly steep slope there. So,
sure.
yeah.
Especially for me personally, you get to run downhill.
Oh, yeah, of
You
course.
just start at one end and go to the other. Is that what you meant? Or you mean?
Yeah. And then you take the elevator.
That
Yeah.
park, there's also access to the Petit Saint-Tour, right?
Oh, yeah.
I walked past it, but I didn't go down the train line that used to run around Paris. Yeah.
Yeah, there are many different places where you can access it, but yeah, this would be one of them.
So when I was doing the walk shows, one every day for the Christmas, and you and I did the 8th, I guess it was.
Yeah.
I planned to do for the 15th Parc Georges Brassens, and then I thought it was Parc Montsouris, so I rolled up at this park and I was like, yeah, let's go live. And then I looked at the name out the front. I was like, oh god, I got the wrong one.
Yeah.
And then I went to. Have you been to Parc Georges Brassens?
I don't think I have actually.
Yeah, I don't think anyone has. It turned out it was really interesting. There's a vineyard and
really?
and beehives and stuff like that.
Sweet.
But it's not as big and open and beautiful as the park that you recommended, which is definitely worth.
Oh, there you go. Well, so Parc Montsouris. Now, for the 15th, I would recommend a very obvious pick. So this is Tour Montparnasse, easily the most hated building in the entire city of Paris. So anyone either that lives here or ever visited Paris would know to recognize this place. They are trying to make it better. They're gonna reconstruct it. Make it like a really green tower
On top or what?
Like 1/3 of it will be all gardens.
How are they going to do that? Or just like stick trees off the edge?
Well, they have this. There was a French guy who invented the technique of a vertical garden. So you have that in BHV and Marais, and there's the same thing at Quai Branly. So it's like basically garden growing vertically on a wall.
Wow.
Yeah. So they're going to do that to 1/3 of the
Cool.
skyscraper. But the reason why I'm recommending it is that it has a really cool restaurant with an amazing view of Paris called the Ciel de Paris. And it has a viewing deck from where you can observe the city of Paris. So if you don't want to spend 3 hours in line, waiting to go to the Eiffel Tower, you go to Tour Montparnasse, just go straight up there, no line whatsoever, and you get the amazing view of Paris. And you can actually see the Tour Eiffel as well.
Because it's quite close to it, right?
Yeah. Everything appears close from up there. Okay, so the 16th would be Bois de Boulogne. And I've checked, Louis Vuitton Foundation is actually in the 16th. So, it's technically it's the proper arrondissement. So Bois de Boulogne is this, again, really large park, amazing place.
And this is compared to the Montsouris, it's maybe like what?
Oh, yeah, much
Like
larger.
10 times as big or something?
Technically, it's called the forest. Bois de Boulogne means the forest of Boulogne. So I don't know if it really, qualifies as a park, but technically it is. And the reason why I'm recommending it is really this time around the Louis Vuitton Foundation, an amazing building built just a couple of years ago by Frank Gehry. So incredibly expensive. I think it was like 140 million euros or something. So a masterpiece of contemporary architecture. And they do host amazing shows. So they spend a lot of money to bring, the best artists that they can. And when they put on an exhibition, it really is worth going there. So, but it's easily worth on account of the exhibitions, on account of the building itself. Bois de Boulogne is really beautiful. Just a friendly tip: if you go there, try and make it before, let's say, 7:30, 8 p.m. Because there's a lot of how should we say?
I think you say
ladies,
prostitutes.
Yes, that's how you say it. I was going to say ladies of the night, but you
ladies
have a more
of the park, ladies of the forest.
Yeah.
No, our listeners are mature. They need to know the truth. We don't need euphemisms for this kind of thing.
Well, the truth is that most of those ladies are not exactly ladies.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so there's like a bit of a speciality for them. Yeah,
Well,
so
I'm glad you've done your research, Boris.
well, I'm very thorough in my research.
What about the Louis Vuitton building? Is it worth trekking all the way out there just to see the building from the outside?
I would say so, yes.
Yeah.
And I would say it's easily more interesting from the outside than from the inside. So
In terms of the architecture?
Oh, yeah.
What I like to call flamboyant contemporary architecture.
Exactly.
Now let's jump back inside the periphery to the 17th.
Oh, yeah. So the 17th is Rue Lévis. So this really like sweet pedestrian street that is filled with like really cute stores, selling foodie items. So if you're a foodie, if you're interested in all things gourmet, this is a good place to visit, but also just, to do your flaneur thing or walk around, enjoy the buzz. So it's a very local thing. Again, not very touristy, And not very far from it is the recently renovated Hôtel Gaillard, where is Banque de France, Cité de l'Économie et de la Monnaie. So this about to become the Museum of Coins and Economy in a beautiful Gothic revival building that looks as if it was made in the medieval period, but it was actually made in the second half of the 19th century. So again, the building is amazing, recently renovated, so really, really worth to visit. Those two things in the 70s.
And indeed, you can't go wrong in that area, the Batignolles sort of area, speaking of flaneuring around, aimless walking, because it's not just the history of it, but it's just really, it's kind of like a village, isn't it?
Oh, yeah, it is, yeah. 17 still has these pockets, of like beautiful houses and that actually have courtyards and gardens. So, yeah, you can easily get lost there and not regret it.
Right. And a lot of those little like private alleyways as well.
Mm-hmm. Oh,
they're really beautiful.
No, those are really cute.
Yeah. Okay, now we're going to my neighborhood,
Wow.
the 18th.
So, yeah, what I really had in mind for the 18th was chocolate shop Cossack. That's in 106 Rue Coligny-Court. So they only sell bean-to-bar chocolates, dark chocolate bars. So they're really highly specialized. If you want to know your chocolate, you go there. And they only sell like really high-quality stuff. It's a small enterprise, so it's a small store, but really worth the visit.
Right.
So it's a far cry from all the chocolates that are made with milk or with almonds or whatever. Like these are really world-class chocolates.
Proper chocolate.
Yeah, and the thing is, that people often disregard the food in Paris and how incredibly developed of a foodie scene you have here. So you can easily get distracted by all the museums and all the sites and all the monuments and streets, but food here is amazing. So that's something that really should be included in consideration.
All right, so we've got just two more arrondissements left. We're doing well. You're doing well, Boris.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, making good time. So this is in the 19th Parc des Bouches-Chaumont, another amazing place for running. It's all in hills, and it's slightly outside of the, you might say, popular places around the city. So it's slightly outside of what tourists would visit. But a beautiful artificial lake. Inside, it was actually a former quarry, so it still has this sort of, mountain-like appeal. You can climb on top of it as it's all on hills. There is like a little garden canopy and an amazing view of the rest of Paris from there. So really, really worth the visit. There's also a very chic, Rosa Bonheur
yes.
cafe there. So like really hipster place.
Which turns into a gay club on Sunday night, which
I
found by accident after having...
you don't have to justify yourself.
No, I was with...
This is in a previous life,
I was with a bunch of guys having an afternoon beer in there on Sunday afternoon. And Sunday afternoon became Sunday evening. And then we looked up and it was like, wow, there's only guys in here. And then we noticed there was like a strip pole in the middle.
That was appropriated as a strip pole.
Yeah, well, indeed it was that night. But it was good fun. I stayed there. I was dancing. I love it. I love that scene. But also I want to say there's what I call the Indiana Jones feel to the Bouches-Chaumont, which is that sort of... up on top of the hill, it looks like I don't even know what it is.
Oh, yeah.
What is that thing? It's like a little...
I would call it a canopy, yeah. This like, this classical looking, circular thing.
Yeah.
So, and yeah, you kind of have a Indiana Jones feel because you can go through some caves and you can go through like a little bridge, to get there.
That's
so,
right.
Yeah.
I did the walk show that we did in that park. I did a walk show with Slim and the Beast, the band that... did the very first episode on the show, and they brought their guitars and we walked all the way to the top on that little bit, and they just sat there playing in that canopy thing, and it was really good. People were all taking pictures of us, taking pictures of them. It was brilliant. And that one is free on Facebook for you guys who want to know what a walk show is all about, but the rest you'll have to subscribe for. Let's go to the 20th arrondissement.
Okay, so the 20th arrondissement is nowadays really becoming well known for its street art, its graffiti. So, Paris is not only about this ancient art, that is at least 100 or 200 or 1,000 years old. So there's a lot of new ideas brewing in the city. And most of it is street art, so most of it is graffiti. And there are a lot of places to choose from. In the 20th, I chose Rue des Noyers and Ancienne Voie Ferrée. So really cool graffiti there. You can go and check it out, see the more contemporary production. And to me, it's really interesting because, you have people like Basquiat, nowadays a famous artist who started out doing graffiti, was, discovered by Andy Warhol and all of it, then became, the most famous artist in the world. But, there's always that possibility that some Andy Warhol will discover your graffiti and be amazed by it, and be like, you're actually incredibly talented. So I think it's a great place to see the actual character of the city, like how city lives, what are the ideas that are rolling around. So it's not necessarily, you go to a museum and you see the established art, you see something that has been filtered through, ages of different art critics and whatnot, but you go and see the street art scene, and that's still fresh, it's not filtered. You see these different ideas clashing, so it's a really exciting place. And, the 20th, I think, is perfect for this. I mean, I had to choose one place, so I chose the Rue des Noyers. But you can walk around it, many different places and see amazing graffitis. And street art in general, not just graffitis, so stencils, stick-ons, all of it.
There you go, guys. Okay, so there's the 20 arrondissements. There's the most interesting. That would keep, if a tourist or anyone that lives here were to do all of the things that you've just recommended, how long do you think that would take?
20 days, I think.
There you go, guys. There's the 20-day challenge. If anyone does it, let me know. Let Boris know in Paris in person. And, we'll applaud you. There's no prizes. Maybe I'll give him a tote bag if someone did all 20 of those things. But I think I want to finish on a question for you. Great list, I must say. Thanks for that.
Thanks, Ollie.
But I also want to know, just in general, the kind of tours you do for people that are listening who maybe want to book a tour with someone who knows Paris inside out like you.
Well, my idea is that I really, as you said, do in-depth tours. So I do things that I personally find interesting, which is all about interpreting a certain work of art or interpreting a certain building as it speaks of its own time. And not only historically, not only like, okay, this is from the 18th century, but really what people were thinking about then, how they felt, how they saw themselves, how they saw the world, what they were looking forward to, what they were afraid of. Like, you can really see all of these things in works of art they created, and especially in the buildings they created. So my tours, I would say, and tours of my other guides, because there's more of us, are all about that, like bringing you a specific period and making it appear alive in front of you, So it's like communicating with different periods of the past and see how they would, imagine the future, how they would, see the world and all of it.
So you really get beneath the surface of this stuff.
Yeah, I would say
it's not just that you point out a building and say 18th century, check that one out. Let's continue. Yeah.
No, I really have to sometimes, hold myself not to go too deep into things. But in most cases, I have to say, people are really curious and they're really interested. And, although these things may look somewhat frightening in the beginning, once you get into the story, once you find a good way of explaining everything, people really get enthusiastic and they ask me all these questions. And that's the part I really prefer. Like, I really like being asked interesting questions. Then I have to, think about the answers, and we enter into really curious discussions, So to me, that's the best part of it.
That's cool. And it was due to me asking questions that this episode ran a little bit longer. But hey, so it is. And I wanted to say that the people that do your tours seem to be very happy, because before we met, I was reading through the TripAdvisor reviews. People are very happy with your stuff.
Oh yeah, I try to keep them that way. Yeah.
I think the word genius was used.
Oh well, I wouldn't go that far.
Maybe that was one that. Did you write that one or?
Yeah.
No, but it was it was really cool, because you can tell just by reading that you really do go beyond the. Beyond pointing out the Eiffel Tower and where to find it. And I think people seem to really enjoy it.
Oh, thanks,
Ollie. And if our walk through Parc Monceau was anything to go by, I would love to do one of your tours one day myself.
Yeah, well, you're welcome to.
Thank you very much. So, if you want to check out more of Boris's work and indeed his team, it's parisinperson.com. You can see all the different tours he does all over the city. Go and do it. Let him know that you heard him on the Eiffel Tower. I'm going to get him back. Hopefully, we're going to do a walk show somewhere. Yeah. If you could do a dream walk show anywhere, where would it be? You're going to be deported tomorrow.
You're really pushing the deportation.
Yeah, but let's say we got a 45-minute walk show. Where should we do it?
I'm thinking Boulevard Haussmann would be really good, but if not that, anywhere in the medieval Paris, Ile de la Cité or Quartier Latin. So
let's do Ile de la Cité. That's the smaller, the one with Notre Dame.
Yeah, that's the island. Yeah, the little island in the middle.
Great. Okay, we're going to do that. So book a tour with Boris. If you want to see us do that walk show, if you want to see more from Boris, sign up on Patreon for $10 a month. You'll get access to, I think there's about 100 videos in there, including the one that Boris and I did in Parc Monceau, and a lot more. But Boris, thank you for coming into the studio.
Oh, thanks for having me, Ollie. Always a pleasure.
Great, and we'll see you next time. Well, there you have it. That was Boris Petrovich talking about, well, that was interesting, talking about all of Paris. And as you guys may have heard recently, I've been finishing the episodes with a word from French Today. And believe it or not, Camille, the voice from French Today, happens to be sitting with me in the studio.
Bonjour, Olivier.
I get nervous to speak in front of you now, you know. Bonjour, Camille.
Parfait.
And what I figured we'd do is, instead of me just talking about my improvement, because we've been talking, you told me the things that I typically do wrong. And I think I mentioned that in the previous episode about intéressant instead of interesting.
Yes.
And I thought we'd talk a little bit about one of the mistakes that I'm always making for the benefit of people to see where I'm messing up this language, and also about the episode that we've literally just recorded for Thursday. So this mistake, we talked on the phone in French for 2 hours, didn't we? 3 hours it felt like. And then you listed some of the things I did wrong. And one of them was sion.
Yes, this ending in T-I-O-N.
Yeah.
And you're not the only one to make that mistake, because it looks like something that exists in English, and typically in English you say
Sion.
Yeah,
Yeah.
sion.
So
Okay.
as in words like,
Tradition.
yes, exactly.
So tradition, attention, station.
Yeah.
Okay. So you say that T-I-O-N in English you pronounce Sean, or whatever.
Yeah. Well, it's weird because I've been in France for 4 years, and I don't think I ever even thought about it.
Mm-hmm.
And every time I've talked about, going to the metro station Nation, I must have said Nation.
Yes.
Une tradition.
Yes. And so let's say it in French. It's actually this T-I-O-N is pronounced like double S-I-O-N.
Yeah.
Sion.
Yeah.
Sion.
So nation.
Nation.
Une tradition.
Absolutely. And this is the kind of thing that you shouldn't really expect it to come really naturally to you. It's going to be a fight. Your brain is going to want to pronounce it the English way. It's only natural. It's been speaking English for all your life. So those words or those sounds, they're called cognates. They are the same. They exist in English. But of course, they are different in French. So each time you say that kind of word, you're going to have to, have a little flag that comes in your head and says, watch out, attention.
Attention. Oh, wow.
Attention.
Yeah, nice segue
Okay.
there.
Attention, it's nation, tradition, and so on.
And the trouble I've found with those kind of words that I've been saying incorrectly the whole time is no one's ever going to correct you on that, because it's so close.
Yeah,
that-
they might not, or you may not actually. Your brain is such a powerful tool.
Not mine.
That it's to me each time I say it in English, nation or attention, I have to be careful too.
Yeah.
It's the same.
Well, it's like that. What I said in the previous episode, intéressant instead of intéressant, because I was always pronouncing it intéressant,
Yeah.
and no one ever called me out on it until before you. One guy on the honeymoon trip, and he couldn't understand me,
Yes.
or maybe he was just messing with me. But he was an elderly man, and he just went like quoi, c'est quoi, quoi, and I was like, what? I'm trying to say the word. So cognates. Okay, well that was just a mini lesson, but we can also give a little preview for what's coming up on Thursday. Is that we've just recorded an episode about beginner French,
Yes,
a bonus episode, and did you enjoy that experience?
I loved it. It was really fun.
We really went off the rails too. We talked about everything. We talked about how to introduce yourself in a French shop or whatever, French anywhere. The things you're probably doing wrong, the things you're probably doing right. I feel like I learned something.
Yeah, it's always fun with you. The conversation just keeps flowing, and you never know. You sit down, you never know when it's going to end, like in the conversation.
And the conversation, I think you mean, Camille.
C'est bien, Olivier. c'est
Anyway,
bien.
guys, that's an extra episode coming for you on Thursday. But yes, that's Camille from French Today. If you want to buy one of their audiobooks, it's frenchtoday.com. Add a /earful1 and you will get an additional 10% discount off all their audiobooks. And if you want to get a bit more of a feel for Camille and what she does, tune in again on Thursday and you'll see a whole episode for beginners to French. But you also do stuff for people all the way through their French.
Absolutely. The method covers all the levels. So, and we have a big blog. Also, check it out.
Check it out, guys. You know how it works. And, well, I'll see you on Thursday. Au revoir.
Au revoir.